Good morning, y'all. This is IT Live, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. And I have to really try hard to pay attention right now because it just thundered again and set off the car alarm again. So now I can hear yep, still going. Off vague in the distance, a car alarm is going. I don't think you can hear it, hopefully.
Are you scared?
Yes.
Do you want to wear a thunder coat? Do you know what those are?
Well, right now my dog is currently in my closet. She has an instinct during a tornado to get indoors, and so she gets to the most interior room. No training, dude. No training. Maybe we learned that from the dogs. This is Texas Homer. I'm here with Paul Wadlington. It's post spring. We're just going to do a heat check. We're going to look at the roster, what we think, and then also who we thought won the portal this year as well as it continues to storm here in North Texas. Paul, safe with his weather in Colorado. Roaster, good morning. Good to see you, brother. All right, I'm going to pull up the old trusty depth chart, and then we'll just kind of dive through that. That'll give us more structure, I believe.
Let's do it.
All right, share the screen.
Let's just make it like a bad ESPN talk show.
Yeah.
Where you just say a name, and I'll be like, down!
Yeah.
Up.
Or we just talk about Arch for 45 minutes.
That's really what we should do for SEO.
All right, let's talk quarterback room. Hopefully the Thunder doesn't get picked up on the mic. Pretty gnarly. All right.
We're bringing the Thunder, Connor.
Apparently. I'm glad y'all can't hear it. That's good. This is good mic work. All right, how are you feeling about old Archibald Manning?
I think he's going to be good. I think like any quarterback who's taking over, he's going to have his growing pains. We need to be patient and gentle through that time of transition. But I think he's got all the tools to be really good, I think. And I wish we could have created an even better environment for him. But I think he's got enough guys around him that we can have a productive offense. But look, he's going to have an off game, and that's guaranteed, especially for a young starting quarterback. But it's not going to look like Quinn Ewers' freshman year.
Yeah.
I think, he's going to be the focal point of the offense, clearly. And that's going to be, a good thing for us most Saturdays. But there's going to be a couple of teams on the schedule that will be able to really stress him and take away some of the things that we're trying to do.
Yeah, and Eric was saying yesterday some of the sources, near the program. I mean, they're throwing around the H word, dude. We're hearing Heisman.
Wow.
So I don't know if that means this year or next year, but they're feeling good over there, man, about what they got in Arch. So that's pretty impressive. Oh, great. Here comes the hailstorm, dude.
These weather updates are riveting, Connor.
Dude, my car's out there, dude. It's getting pelted right now. It's probably
I live in Colorado. I don't have any sympathy for you for hail or sleet or anything.
But they're it's probably that big right now, but it's coming down, dude. Dang. All right, we'll try to. I'll try to make sure this is not the Weather Channel, but I have a little bit of stake in this. Yeah, Blake Bryan just got a bad hailstorm before. Yeah, I'm in Denton, so we're.
Why don't you put your car in a garage like a civilized person?
Well, I actually do have covered parking I could use right now, but I didn't know the hailstorm was coming.
Oh, do you want to leave real quick and I'll?
No, I'll come back drenched, dude.
You come back with a concussion.
Yeah, I'll come back soaking wet, dude.
You know how at Looney Tunes, they get a lump on their head and it just goes straight out.
Well, even scarier. I just don't come back at all.
Do you ever? I always remember the one lump or two.
Yeah,
you hit him with a hammer. That's good. That's not violent.
Yeah, not at all. All right, what do you think about the addition of Caldwell, the Troy quarterback?
Yeah, I was intrigued by that. It makes sense to me. Obviously that wasn't on my radar. I hadn't heard of him either, but it makes sense from a depth standpoint. And also, he's a guy who's played college football games.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a situation where Arch gets a boo-boo and he's got to miss a half or something like that, you can put in a guy who's taken college snaps that could bring it home, right? Hand it off, throw it out in the flat to Wingo, let Wingo shake a tackle. So that's the hope with that guy. Does it tell you something about the progression of Trey Owens and Lacey? Maybe. But I think it's just an insurance policy, and I don't read too much into it.
Yeah, and Charlie and Ian did a piece yesterday where they said like he could be our Malik Murphy versus Kansas State. That kind of operate the offense, break glass if needed type of player. And I mean, clearly it says something about training KJ, but it's not that deep. It's just that, hey, look, this is an older quarterback that has reps that'll add value to the room. It's not like we're in deep trouble. It's just, hey, if Arch goes down, we want something that's more of a sure thing. Also, KJ's in his first year.
Yeah,
it's in his first months. So quarterback room feels good. Still, I said yesterday I didn't think much about adding a quarterback. Honestly, it never even crossed my mind. But once they did it, I was like, okay, this is good. I feel good about this.
It wasn't on my shopping list.
Yeah.
You and I have been talking about adding a running back, and they went and added a quarterback. So,
yeah. So I guess it's there's some surety there. All right, speaking of running backs, we got Baxter, Trey, Gibson, Clark, and then the young guys, Simon and Stewart.
Yep.
So Wisner once again climbed to the top there. Remember early in spring, we were thinking maybe, Gibson was getting a little bit more shine. I was kind of questioning that. CJ Baxter still coming off an injury. I think the biggest positive too is Christian Clark healing up well and looking good. But
that's surprising
to me, man. I still would have taken a running back given what we know.
Well, this could be sensitive, but we'd have to get rid of running back.
Yeah.
Is maybe plural if we're going to bring in a running back. The coaches are counting on CJ Baxter and Christian Clark being healthy, I guess.
Yeah.
That's my takeaway. And we'll see if that bet pays off. So I think we're probably league SEC average here. What do you think?
Yeah. And Eric said too yesterday on his position room breakdown that league average. And as long as we can block, which is also still a question mark because we have question marks on the offensive line. If we had like a returning offensive line that I knew were good run blockers, I wouldn't stick on this room so much. But we don't have that surety at O-line. So we don't have surety at O-line. We don't have surety for proven depth at running back. That's where you can get in season and then realize that you're in trouble and it's too late.
We know Wisner provides floor. So that's good, right? Gibson, if he's cleaned up his ball control issues,
pass blocking.
Yeah, pass blocking. That's always an issue for a young running back. That should be solid floor as well. The question for this room is ceiling, right? Like we don't have a guy. Generally, your offensive line and your larger system and your threats outside create your running game, right? But the degree to which that running game is created is still determined by the talent of the running back. So, and there are running backs who run their blocking better, right? I don't know if we have that guy.
We remember Roshan and Bijan, right? We weren't particularly great run blockers with them. No. But they still found ways to make it happen. And that'll show you that I think we've kind of, with the NFL devaluing running backs, we've kind of gone too far where we're like running back doesn't matter at all anymore. And it's purely your line. That's not true. You need both to work in tandem. And we saw that with Bijan and Rojo making tackles miss. And we're talking about that. I was saying yesterday, I need that at least fourth round running back plus in the room to feel really good. That's what I'm comparing things to.
Yeah, and I think particularly at the college level, because the NFL game is not college, right?
Yep.
When you block it right, when they guess wrong, they run the stunt, they're in the wrong hole, you need that to be a 50-yard run and not an 11-yard run. Like when everything lines up right, you've really got to punish them for a defensive screw up or you just block it perfectly.
So there's a question I have, and I just want to hear your take on this because you always have interesting thoughts here. So Trey Wisner, 1,000-yard rusher. So often what we'll hear in the comments is, why y'all keep sticking on running back room? Trey Wisner's returning. He has 1,000-yard rushing. What's even the argument you guys are making here? This seems weird. So my question is, if Sark's had 1,000-yard rusher every year, is that purely a plus on his running back recruiting, or do you think this is a system that creates 1,000-yard rushers? And if it is a system that creates 1,000-yard rushers, you would still want a 4th-round plus running back to squeeze as much juice as possible out of that, in my thought process. But what do you think about that, Paul?
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay, you agree with the premise?
Yeah, agree with the premise. I think his system creates it. I think also if you have, and also he tends to pick a main running back, right? Historically, he tends to pick a guy, maybe two, but usually a guy. And if you are a competent college football offense and you hand the ball off 18 times a game, you're going to have 1,000 yards at the end of the season. That's just how it works, right? It's kind of like the NFL math. It used to be a big deal to rush for 1,000 yards, back when it was a 14-game schedule or a 12-game schedule. Now that you have 17-game schedules, you know what you need to average? 60 yards a game.
Yeah.
If you're the number one running back on an NFL team, you're a 1,000-yard rusher, right? If you don't get hurt. Kind of like that too for college. We're now playing 15-game seasons, 16-game seasons. So it's not that big of a deal. So the question is, there's a difference between a 1,000-yard running back and an 1,800-yard running back. And it's also a yards per carry thing. It's an efficiency. Are you averaging 5.8 or are you averaging 4.8? Like there's a big difference there. And, the difference is big runs, basically. So, I love Wisner. I really love what he offers us. He's a really good dude, a hard worker. But you did see the difference in output against Ohio State, against Arizona State. When he was getting hit early, there wasn't a lot of value add on his runs. Whereas at A&M, we were blocking it well initially, and then he was running through the guy that, the second level guy that contacted him. You didn't see that against higher end tackling teams. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah, so that's why we kind of stick on the running back room. But I do see the fans' point. They're like, what are you talking about? We did fine last year. Fine's not the metric. We want to win everything. Any chance Gibson or Clark come on so strong we can't keep them off the field? I mean, that's the hope, right?
Hopefully, yeah, that's the hope.
So Gibson is, for his body style, he falls forward. That's what I really like about Gibson. Like, there's plenty of tape. Me and Ian have gone over it where, like, you contact him 5 yards deep and he's just going to fall forward for 4 yards. That's important. He's still doing young guy stuff. He feels to me more like a situational back at this point. So I want to see what he looks like every down. Clark, I'm a fan of and have been since high school. He moves like Bijan. He's got that alpine skier where he's full speed, but he's able to glide through. So Clark is who I'm most excited about from high school film, even though Clark's not the 5-star out of him and Gibson. But yeah, I mean, hopefully that's the goal, right? We want a rotation that's solid enough here. And then I think if you can get those guys to show up and then you have Trey Wisner's toughness and then mentality leading that room and that kind of permeating everybody else, then I think you have something going here. We just have to see these things happen, right? Wide receiver, Paul. How you feeling here? Oh, no, we lost brother Paul. He seems to have frozen, guys. Let's see how he's doing. Have I frozen or is Paul frozen? Chat, let me know. Paul's frozen? All right, I'm good. I'm making sure it's not my my internet that's frozen. We'll try to get Joe on here for you in a second. We know Paul's been dealing with his internet being out with Comcast this morning. So we'll keep going. I'll try to get someone else in here if we can. Joe, you ready to rock? We'll see if we can get Joe. Brother Joe, good?
What's up?
What's up, man?
I was hold on. I was about to play backup for you.
cleanup.
I was trying to play backup for you with the hailstorm. And
Yeah.
it's raining in Austin too. So
Yeah, Paul's been he said his internet, he just texted me his internet went offline. He's been dealing with it since he texted me last night that Comcast, he's been going through it. So guess what, guys? Powerful Joe Cook in the building. What's up, Joe?
oh man.
I'm actually excited because me and you don't do any shows together. So I actually want to hear from
This is gonna be
here.
fun.
Yeah. So you were watching, right? So we're
y'all are going through the roster. We're hitting wide receiver at this point.
Yep. Joe just woke up. No, Joe's up and at it, man. He's got to be on the boards.
Yeah. It's
with his new baby. All right, we're gonna talk wide receiver then, Joe.
All right.
We went through running back. Luckily, you didn't have to go through that one. That's one of the controversial positions we always get phone pushback on. Wide receiver, how are you feeling post spring? Of course, Moore and Wingo went down, got hurt, not ideal. Are you feeling better about this room with Emmett Mosley? Are you a little bit question marky because we didn't pull that talent that shall not be named? Where are you at with running or wide receiver?
I think honestly, Wingo and Moore just seeding reps over the course of the spring was a good thing to help us figure that out. If we kept running them out there, watching Steve Sarkisian run them out there first string, it's like, okay, what do you learn? I don't know if we would have learned anything about Parker Livingstone. That doesn't mean that Sark thought this room was ready to go heading into this year. That's why they still went and got Emmett Mosley. And man, I think I know all the names, or try to know all the names when it comes to recruiting. And Sark even mentioned, like, yeah, we recruited him, then he had a knee injury. But I don't remember that. Oh man, the Colorado contingent has joined us. But I know Paul like really hates Emmett Mosley and thinks he's a total jag. But I think he's good. So whenever Emmett Mosley goes for 1,000 yards this year, we're gonna laugh at Paul on this.
That's right. Hey, sorry about that, guys. We can't handle stormy weather here, apparently. My internet went out again, and now it's back. It's Joe. Man, way to be Johnny on the spot with the tag. That's amazing.
I was ready to roll.
Joe, you can stay on and hang out. If you got to do work, you can leave either one. Wait in the wings, brother.
I'll wait in the wings, Joe. Sorry to draft you in, man.
We'll go through the rest of the offense. But no, I was saying I think that Moore and Wingo being a little bit sidelined was a blessing in disguise to help Sark and Chris Jackson learn what that room really looked like. And that, okay, you got something from Parker Livingstone. You get some good stuff from your freshmen, but they're still freshmen. So maybe you would have liked to find the unnamed guy, but the name guy really helps in the room. It's what you want, at least it to look like a little bit for a season with Arch Manning, but it's not going to be, two top 50 picks and a third guy in the 6th round this year, at least as it looks right now.
Paul. Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, I want to correct Joe's libelous slander about Emmett Mosley. I think he's good. I think he's going to be a useful guy for us. But yeah, I don't think we have the upside guys right now at their stage of development that we've had the last 2 years. And I know, Ian and I have sort of bemoaned that we've had a group of surrounding weapons the last couple of years that Arch isn't going to have necessarily this year, but we have the opportunity to develop those guys. So Ryan Wingo right now, I mean, literally today, is going to be a different player from Ryan Wingo in late September. I think he's going to be a better player. He's going to be more well-schooled, and he's also going to have the burden of kind of being the playmaker, the number one guy, right? And I think he'll step up to that. I think Emmett Mosley is going to be a good guy, as sort of like a fail-safe in the offense. He's a guy that can go settle in to open space and catch the ball. And DeAndre Moore, if he can get more consistent, he's got to stop doing the volleyball sets with his hands. I think he's a guy who can make plays. He certainly showed that later in the season. He had some big moments.
I got a question for you, Paul, on this one, because I don't know the answer yet. Both these guys played a lot of slot. I know that may have been a little bit of the result of Stanford having, despite their limitations on offense, they did have an NFL outside receiver. Texas had, high quality outside receivers. So Moore was in it. Who do you bump out? Who goes outside from these two?
I feel like Moore can play outside.
Me too.
I really do. Mosley, I'm not sure, to be honest, because we haven't seen him do a lot of diverse stuff. But I'm pretty sure Moore can play outside if we ask him to. Also, if it's not going the way we want, it could be Parker Livingstone. He's more of a true X receiver. And I think we're going to move Wingo around a little bit. So I think it'll be interesting. I don't think we have. It is always really reassuring in the college game to have that slot receiver that you can feed, that's closest to the quarterback, that's the easiest throw to make. It's really reassuring to have a guy that can catch 80 balls in the slot, right? I don't know if we have that guy necessarily, but we're going to see. We're going to find out. I do think Moore's versatile enough that he can play inside or outside. And then we're not going to constrain our offense because a guy doesn't adapt well to playing outside. We're just going to try. We're going to try something else outside rather than say, well, here are 3 guys. We're going to live and die with them. I think Livingstone will have an opportunity early in the year to see if he's one of our top 3 guys. So very interesting to watch that.
Do you think Moore is going to have a breakout? Because we hear like from practice reports and just like over the past really 2 years with Moore is that he's going to test better than we realize. And so that's I think Moore can end up in those early rounds. And it doesn't feel like that, but we just constantly kind of through Eric's sourcing kind of get told to like, hey, he's got real potential here. I know he works out with the NFL trainers, that kind of stuff. So to me, it feels like Moore, if he can get the hands things down, could really pop this season. Because Eric said yesterday he thinks Moore's out of here after this year. So to me, it's like I wonder what the ceiling is for Moore, and if we don't realize, kind of like a Golden. I'm not comparing him in that way, but just he might have a big jump this year from all the kind of behind the scenesy stuff.
Well, we've got a good history of this, right? So one of the things that's really great about Sark that inspires confidence is guys we weren't expecting show out. I didn't have AD Mitchell as what was AD early second round?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have him as an early second rounder. I mean, I thought he was an interesting potential piece. He was always injured at Georgia. He had a couple of nice moments. He was never their number 1 receiver. So when we got him, I was like, oh, I can see the potential here. This is great. He's going to, my thought was, oh, he'll be a starter. He'll be good for us. And then he went out and was really, really good. Matthew Golden, I was like trying to sell people. It's like, hey, this guy's actually really good. When he's healthy, when he's playing, he's dangerous. But my main thing was he's great as a kick returner. Like he's going to, juice up our kick return game. And then he's also a much better receiver than people think. I didn't think he was a NFL first rounder.
No one did.
So DeAndre Moore, we don't know exactly what he's going to be. The truth is we can kind of count on Sark having 2 or 3 guys make a big jump that we're not expecting. And it happens every year. So in a sense, people are like, well, who's that guy going to be? We're like, well, we don't actually know, but we know that the way the program is now and the way they're recruiting and the way they're developing, 2 or 3 guys are sure to have a big jump up. We just don't know exactly who they're going to be yet.
Yeah. And the funny part is we're talking about like, man, he's got, potential energy. And we also have Ryan Wingo sitting there that if he figures it out, dude, like the actual wide receiver position, not just playing athlete, that you're dealing with the first round speed and size. So it can happen here. And then you got quietly the Parker Livingstone hanging around. This room has interest.
I think the scary thing about this receiver group is that they all have the potential to level up, and they're going to have a quarterback who can and is willing to deliver them the ball anywhere on the field if they're open. And the truth is most college coordinators, heck, a good number of NFL coordinators hedge their bets. And their attitude is, we're calling this defense, and if they can hit this 20-yard comeback route, they're going to hit it every time. But most college quarterbacks can't hit that. So we're going to concede that in our defense. Arch Manning will attempt whatever route is going to be open, and he's got the ability and the talent to hit it. So he's a fearless player. And so I think that's the exciting thing is the field is going to feel really big when you play Texas, not only because of his arm and he's willing to throw the ball anywhere, but because of his legs. So, if you're like, all right, well, this guy's slinging it around, let's drop back into an 8-man zone. Arch will be like, all right, 3rd and 5, I'm going to run for 9 yards. I'm just going to keep doing that. So that's the exciting part about this offense is I think we're going to be slightly diminished or about the same at most positions, except the quarterback position. I think we're going to have some potential that is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
We're also getting into this cool part where it's fully Sark's roster. and he's recruited a lot of this talent. Like Sark was able to maximize a lot of our guys that weren't, elite national talent. Now what happens when you're seeing these guys get maximized randomly and they are of this 4-star, 5-star pedigree too. So that'll be an interesting sign. All right, guys, before we keep going though. Academy Sports and Outdoors is your new home for Jordan. Gear up today and take flight on the court, off the court, and above the court. Unleash your greatness with head-to-toe Jordan gear for the entire family. Available in-store and at academy.com. Elevated styles and shoes for everyone. Unstoppable value every single day. Plus, Academy offers easy ways to shop and save time, like free 1-hour in-store or curbside pickup on academy.com orders. Or choose same-day delivery powered by DoorDash. You can order by 4 p.m. and get it by 8 p.m. That's fast. Check out our full Jordan selection today at Academy Sports and Outdoors. Now I'm an adult. I can buy my own Jordans. But I remember when I was young, I had to get my Shark Tank on to convince my parents. For the school year, we will require 1 pair of Jordans.
How much? Joe, help me understand the youth culture. Does everyone your age and below still think LeBron is number one?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably.
Who else? Like there are what's the right term for this? How great Kobe was is sometimes skewed by the cultural phenomena he was.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it's people my age are LeBron people.
It's a funny delineation of age because if you're Gen X or older, you just can't even hear it if you watch.
Yeah, people that grew up watching Jordan are like, shut your mouth.
Yeah, it enrages us, especially if we see LeBron like flop or do like LeBron type stuff. But also when you're 6'9", 260, and you handle the ball like you're Magic Johnson, and now you can shoot. And I mean, it's such a freak. Like, it's just amazing.
The coolest LeBron tidbit I think I heard is that he spends like upwards of $2 million per year on physical maintenance. And it shows like he's playing into his 40s. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Physical maintenance has many meanings. We'll just leave it at that.
All right. Tight end, which I think was a nerve-wracking position, especially with Nick Townsend not being on campus yet. Winston, good surprise, bright future. He did a lot of good things, but Jordan Washington went down, who's going to be our big receiving threat, NFL pedigree in that regard. Went down. That was sketchy. Will Randall, we don't expect probably to do anything ever unless it's like a 4th or 5th year thing of like, he's going to be a fullback. Spencer Shannon, not necessarily tracking where we would love him to be. But the addition of Jack Injuries, I loved, man. Like watching his tape. And Paul will tell you, he's not a guy that can go for 60 yards, apparently. But he can go for 25, and that'll be enough. And like we said, 90% plus catch rate. So adding Jack Injuries changed the outlook of the room to me. When you have Jordan on the field and Jack on the field, it's going to be tough for defenses.
Hey, Joe, I want to ask you. You've done this now a long time. There's always that guy in practice that because of injuries or because of something or simply because of necessity gets a lot of opportunities, gets a lot of press because of that, like Emery Winston. But then in the season, you're reminded that they're a true freshman and they disappear from all mention. And then you kind of file it away and then they show out in 2026, 2027. Do you think that's the case here? Or do you think this guy has made enough of an impression that Sark likes him as that movable piece, extra tight end / H-back who can do all sorts of nifty stuff? He'll do dirty work. He'll slip out in the flat. Do you think he has a role like that this year? Or do you think that he was just mentioned because he was getting all the reps?
I think he's got a role this year. I think that there are times, and especially early in the season, where they try to get the third tight end out there just to see what they have. And I'll admit, even in the SEC house era, you have 85 scholarships. I thought there's one scholarship that's worth using on a fullback. And I thought that would be him. I thought he could be like a great fullback because he doesn't have the great height, but he still has kind of receiver skills. And if you could throw some pounds on him and teach him to block, then maybe that's what his good fit is. And H kind of demands that anyway. But if he's able to start doing some of the stuff that like tight ends do, which it sounds like he was able to do during spring, then yeah, he seems like a guy we'll see get like 2 catches for 8 yards against UTEP, and then may not hear much about him. And then next year he's one of the H, and Jordan Washington's the Y, and you have your 2 tight ends and, maybe a third with whatever you get from Townsend, or if injury sticks around, like you have a good crew. So I think he is good enough to play, but he's not good enough to have a lot of the every down responsibilities, which is probably fine for a true freshman tight end.
That's how you want it.
And historically, I mean, you guys will recall this kind of guy is a guy that Oklahoma State and Oklahoma have done a great job of bringing on their roster. The J.D. Runnels of the world, if you guys remember that guy. There's a bunch of examples of these guys.
Dimitri Flowers.
Like, they're athletic enough to be a threat as a receiver. They're tough enough and strong enough and have enough leverage because they're not 6'5" guys that they can block. They can lead block. They can do crosser, like counter kind of action. They can even kick out a defensive end if you ask them to. They can pass protect. Like, these are guys who are not glamorous. At the end of the year, their stats don't blow you away. But every coach will say, oh, God, that guy's so valuable, right? He's so valuable getting that 3rd and 3 for them because everyone ignores him. He's so valuable holding up as a pass blocker, as a run blocker. And
the red zone league touchdown.
Just very versatile. And OU and OSU tortured us with those guys. And I think this is our attempt at that guy. And I think Sark sees that role. He did at USC, remember? I mean, USC had traditional fullbacks, right? Well into the 2000s with Pete Carroll. You had the famous early hit where Cedric Griffin knocks out their fullback on the fullback streak. But the fact that he was athletic enough to run a fullback streak and they call it in a big game tells you something. So I just think that this is a guy to circle and keep your eyes on. I know a lot of people were mystified when he was recruited, but I know exactly why we brought him on campus, and I know exactly what his role is. So I'm just curious how soon we see it.
Me too. And then also we got Townsend, man. If Eric could place his bets, man, Eric loves Nick Townsend. So it's like you have him coming to, like Eric said too, that he thinks next year this will be the best tight end room in the nation. We're just a year away from cementing that.
I mean, Sark, again, I'm in a Sark love fest and big picture stuff. He identifies areas, and what is our gross weakness becomes a strength. Look at edge. 2021, our edge room was gross.
Linebacker, we weren't even able to recruit.
Linebacker, we couldn't field guys, right? Yeah. Right now, what's a better edge room in the country than Texas? I struggle to think of it, honestly.
Right.
So he's just really good at narrowing in. Now, we did have a little rough spot in tight end recruiting for a year or two, I think, where we kind of went after some developmental guys that maybe didn't develop the way we anticipated. But Sark saw that and he course corrected. And you're bringing in guys like Townsend. You're bringing in guys like Jordan Washington. Those are real athletes, man. And Jordan Washington put on 45 pounds in a year. And it's good weight. So God only knows what his athletic potential is with all that extra strength and muscle.
He's got you get chances to shake hands with guys during recruiting stuff, and he's got some mitts. They're I don't know if Cam Williams big, but they're some big hands.
Well, we have a 5-star on the line too in recruiting from modern day if we can land that too. So it's like trying to figure out this stuff in the pipelines there. Because we went for like some 5-star types at tight end, like Deuce Robinson, right? But we didn't land him.
He's not.
It's like
he's not a tight end though, right?
I don't think he ended up being a tight end. But we went for like the high 5-star tight ends and we just kind of missed on them. And so then we ended up with these like developmental guys. But now the room's getting fixed, and I appreciate that. All right, let's talk offensive line. There's still a big question here at right tackle and left guard. I don't think we necessarily heard what we wanted to hear in the spring at those two positions to shore up confidence. Now, we do feel good about DJ Campbell growing as a leader, and I think we all feel good about Gooseby. Watch his clip of him dunking. You feel good about the athleticism and the play last year, but we still have some question marks at offensive line.
I agree, but I'm glad the solutions or the potential solutions are all from a pool of third or fourth year players, save for Brandon Baker.
Mm-hmm.
Like if that's going to be who Texas has to figure it out with, I'm glad it's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 third or fourth year guys, and then 1 second year guy who's a 5-star. So yeah, you may not have heard what you wanted quite yet. That's not great, especially when you have to protect Arch Manning and run the ball better. But that being the pool to choose from, third or fourth year guys who've been with Kyle Flood, who been in college strength and conditioning, especially in the league they're about to play in and the heights they want to reach, that if you're not going to figure it out, well, I guess that's the next best thing. And the only problem is, how good is that?
Paul has no thoughts on offensive line.
We'll see. I think we gotta clean up right tackle, right? That's the main emphasis to me. We're gonna find something at guard. I'm not concerned. We'll figure that out. Right tackle, I think, is the area where we need to hold up and get a guy. Brandon Baker sounds like he needs to be a little more assertive, and that's what they're kind of waiting. And people underestimate how much a player can improve. Starting right now until August camp, all he's doing is lifting and conditioning and working on, getting his body better, getting stronger. And sometimes as players get stronger in college football, they get more assertive, they get more aggressive, right? Observe Michael Huff's career at Texas. He was kind of seen as like a track guy early in his career. And then he started lifting weights. He grew into his body. And by his senior year, he's drilling people, like nailing. He's like a hard hitter. He's like an enforcer at safety. He's, tackling Lendale White one-on-one in space. And that just came because his body developed, right? He got stronger. He got more confident. And now he feels like he can push people around. Maybe Baker is similar in that regard, right? He'll get more assertive and more aggressive as he gets stronger and more confident. And if that doesn't come around, got Nick Brooks waiting in the wings. There's a reliable guy. But yeah, I think that's something we've got to fix. Is Kojo the other more reasonable option if Baker doesn't assert himself?
Yeah, the young Kojo, man.
Yeah.
Really impressed with what he's been able to do, especially being like a year younger than his grade. So, yeah, Kojo's an option. And then Eric said yesterday too, man, grad transfers are still able to move around. So
the other battle, aside from figuring out the starters, is figuring out, the top 7 or something like that. And that's still a scary proposition at this point. But again, still your pool is third and fourth year guys. And, if your second center is Connor Robertson, okay, that's probably a pretty good second center. And what if he's able to move up and maybe take hold of that spot to where Kyle Flood thinks, you know what, I got to get Hudson and Robertson and Campbell on the field. Like I'm not super concerned about the top 5. I think that kind of will sort itself out. But once you start getting into what does 6, 7, and 8 look like, I'm starting to think like, okay, where's what you want to see? Because it's not quite evident yet.
Yeah, I think that's where Hudson's versatility is helpful, because I think we want him to be our starting center. That's pretty clear. But if you're looking at number 6, number 7, if someone gets dinged up, his ability to play guard, and then maybe Connor Robertson is just fine as center, right? You're able to narrow that list of like, we need 8 O-line that can play. Suddenly it becomes more like, well, I actually just need 7 or 6 because we can move Cole Hudson to any guard, position, center.
Right.
I think Chapman might be a guy to keep an eye on. He's been in the crock pot long enough now that I think he's starting to it's starting to come around. Maybe that's a name you haven't heard a ton, but he did get some reps last year. And when I watched him, he fires off the ball. Like, just like Nato, where you watch Nato Umeozulu and you're like, how's this guy not start? And, he just comes off the ball really hard. And then you watch him take a pass pro rep and you're like, oh, okay. I see why we're starting Connor.
And they trust him enough to play that Ogbo tight end, which is I guess it's a half step of where you want to be from bench to starter. But if that's someone that and I know they didn't use it except for goal line situations, but if you have that level of trust, it doesn't seem hard to take another step.
We still have Malik Ogbo on our depth chart.
No, he's in red. That's why
he should be in gold and blue. He'll be blocking for zone read every play this year in West Virginia.
Yeah, I like Ogbo, man. I'm glad he was able to get a landing spot at a quality enough school. That was one that was interesting. And then for the future, pay attention to Nate Kibble. We always hear great things about him too, but he's about a year out. All right, Joe. Thank you, man. And you're still gonna have to wait in the wings in case Paul forsakes us again. But
you can run in.
Thanks for coming on and thanks for pinch hitting, Joe. We appreciate
no problem.
All right.
What a deep bench we have. You could just bring Joe Cook off the bench and he gets you 8 points, 5 boards, 2 assists in like a quarter and a half. That's awesome.
Yep. Now, Paul, it's time to tell him about the best mortgage man in all the land.
Well, I'm glad I'm back for this because this is something I relish and something we appreciate. Gabe has been a great supporter of the show, and you need to be great supporters of him for your own self-interest because he is as good as it gets in the mortgage game. You can reach him at 832-557-1095. He lives in Houston, Texas. Lovely Houston, but he can do your mortgage anywhere in the great state of Texas. In fact, if you're not blessed enough to live in Texas, as I am not, he can help you even if you live in Colorado or anywhere else because he's got connections and he's also licensed in other states. So give him a call. Why should you give him a call, Connor? Well, this is the most important financial decision you'll ever make in your life. Buying your house, refining your house, selling your house. Gabe is the guy to call. He is got 20 years in the industry, got a law degree, former National Merit Scholar. This guy is sharp as a tack. Find out why. Give him a call. 832-557-1095.
Gabe. All right. Defensive line. We'll move a little quicker so we can still hit the portal side of it.
Let's go.
Defensive line. Nobody has knocked any socks off. Alex January, Eric said sources told him that he's still probably the best guy right now. And he's young. So we don't know if that's actually a good thing we want to be hearing. So we have the addition of Cole and then the Syracuse. I have not added the Syracuse addition. So him, Syracuse player, I don't know why I'm blanking on his name, Alex January, those are the two that they're most excited about and have the most runway. We just need Shaw, Brevard, Canoe, all of them to just hopefully pop, but also just kind of do their job. That's where we're at with defensive line. We're kind of in this weird spot in the trenches on both sides where it's like with good coaching that we do have, it'll probably work, but we'll have to see type of thing.
Well, defensive tackle, unlike offensive line, there is a methodology where you can take a bunch of college acceptable level players and tell them there's a bunch of you. You're going to play 20 snaps. And the 20 snaps that you play, you're going to literally play one possession a quarter, 3 to 8 plays. Play like a freaking maniac on every down. Sell it all out because you don't have to go back in again that quarter. And you can rest and you'll go back in the next quarter. Yeah. And whoever plays the best will get the lion's share of snaps over the course of the year. But early, we're going to play 6 guys. Everyone's going to get 20 snaps. And we're going to grade who plays like a freaking maniac all out. So, yes, you weigh 345 pounds. Play like a lunatic for 20 snaps, one drive a quarter, literally. And if we see that kind of effort, we can actually play above our heads from a talent level perspective, right? Even when we had Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat, Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton,
we rotate.
We like to play those guys a ton of snaps, Connor, if we can help it, right? We like them fresh and getting after it. And PK, he substitutes almost to a fault. He wants to get that experience, but he also wants fresh legs. So The problem is sometimes defensive tackles have it in their mind, even if you tell them that, I need to save some in the tank, right? And you've got to convince these guys, like, literally, we want you to play 3 plays of maniacal effort, and then we're going to get you off the field and you're going to get a rest. And if they can do that as a giant tag team, this group can be effective. But, this is also like people are like, there's so many names, there's so many bodies. This is weird. It's a giant tryout, guys. This is semi-pro football. And we've got 10 guys in the room, and there might be 6 of them remaining by the end of next year.
And also you'll see, like, we imported like older guys. Really, this is the chunk of the team, right? This is the future right here, this little nucleus, right?
Yeah.
So it's like these guys at the top are going to be gone soon. We just needed to plug some holes potentially in the ship. Well, this is really what you need to pay attention to going forward.
Agree 100%. But you know what it is interesting is we took guys of different classification even in the portal because we had a hole to fill, that Bo Davis hole, where he decided not to recruit defensive tackles for some reason. That's where that Syracuse transfer comes in, right? And so I think Hero Kanu, even though he's listed as a senior, has another year of eligibility after this one. I believe Travis Shaw the same. So there's some opportunity there. Cole Brevard, his job is to be a big guy and eat a bunch of space and be strong. And, that's what he did at Purdue. That's what he'll do at Texas. But we do need some versatility. We can't just have 10 space eaters. That's not the goal.
Right.
Like that's college minimum expectation of a defensive tackle. We need guys who can make a play, who can push the pocket, who can be active and, grab a running back on the backside, stuff like that. And that's where we're going to look at Alex January, Justice Terry, the transfer from Syracuse, Myron Charles, Sharma, all these guys have a bright future as an impactful defensive tackle. The veterans just need to do their job. And they have an opportunity to do that. But I'm telling you, early on, they're going to find 6 dudes that they feel really good about early. And they're going to say, play like maniacs, 20 snaps a game. We're going to grade you. Whoever plays the hardest and has the most impact, we're going to winnow that down to a 4-man rotation by midseason.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like, look, man, if you do your 1/11th, we're going to be fine. And our coaching has been able to do that and maximize that.
Now it's 1/11. What does that mean?
They're 11th, 11 players on defense. So if you do your 11th, and you do it well, then we don't need you to do anything too crazy. Just do your job. Now, edge, we want you guys to do some crazy stuff because we got some nuts players in here. So Colton Bosick coming off the injury, Ethan Burke. When Ethan Burke gets down in his 4-point stance, he looks like a jaguar. Like he's so, you know what I'm saying? Like the pose of a jaguar.
He's so long.
He's like that long, dude. He looks absurd, dude, when he's in his 4-point stance. But really excited about Ethan Burke. Colin Simmons, best player on the team. That's been consistent all throughout camp. Zena got hurt, but we still really like what we're hearing about Zena. I think Lance Jackson's a first-round pick in the future. And then we got Smith Orogbo on the back end. And also, don't forget, we have Trey Moore that's in that weird tweener spot now, but it's a crazy room, man. And our pass rush should be a devastating feature of our defense.
Well, and so we've got guys, we've got to get Colton Bosick healthy.
Yeah.
Like that guy has so much potential. He's got so much ability. He cannot stay healthy for the life of him. And it's really hurting us, and it's hurting his ability to make a statement because I think if he could be healthy, he's a guy that's in a short rotation playing a lot of snaps because he's impactful when he's out there. And then Trey Moore, we know he can play stand-up edge. We also know in a lot of sets, Brad Spence and Anthony Hill.
Linebacker can do it too, yeah.
They're very good coming off the edge in different packages. So, if we want to play Colin Simmons and Ethan Burke inside on a passing down and then walk up Moore and Anthony Hill late.
Yeah.
And then everyone's twisting and running crosses.
Yeah.
Dude, that's a nightmare for an offensive line because that's just too much speed to keep your feet moving and keep track of, right? Colin Simmons running a twist is an offensive tackle's nightmare. And God help your guard if he's supposed to go run him down outside. Like, that's not happening. So I just think there's a lot of options here. If there's anything I'm even concerned, isn't even the word, I would just love a healthy Colton Bosick, because I think people would be surprised what he can offer that room.
Yeah. And there's just not anyone in here that's not NFL too, as long as Bosick stays healthy.
Yeah.
This whole room will be in the NFL at some point, even the young guys. Flash flood warning, Paul.
Uh-oh.
I have to turn my phone down, but I also need if someone has to tell me something while we're working. All right. Linebacker, we talked about a little bit. Feel great about this room. Brad Spence has really been something that Eric's reporting is keyed in on. We knew he's a pass rusher at Arkansas, but he's been able to read and react, run game. He's been able to do good in the pass game. So this is important, right? Like, we're going to get him reps this year, but this looks like the heir apparent to Anthony Hill after he goes pro. That's also important. So that's important. Leonga Lafau, we've since day one, since he stepped foot on campus, the coaches have liked him. And then someone asked earlier, what do we think about Ty Anthony Smith?
Love him.
And exactly. Love him too. Like, find any way to get him on the field.
You know, it's interesting, Connor. I've heard people express concerns about linebacker depth, and it's arguably one of our deepest positions on defense.
Especially if you're keying in Trey Moore to the room.
Well, we only have 2 linebackers in our base defense.
Right.
And we've got 5 guys I feel very comfortable putting out there.
100%.
And I think Trey Moore is going to adapt well. When I did watch him do off-ball stuff or drop into coverage last year, he did a great job. So he's a versatile, athletic guy. He also takes football pretty seriously, and he's a veteran. And he has to understand that his future in the NFL is not as an edge, it's as a linebacker.
Yeah.
Now, he could play some on the edge as a linebacker in kind of the old school traditional 3-4, but he's a guy whose NFL checks are going to be written to a linebacker. And so he knows that. That's why he came back. That's why he's going to adopt that persona. And then my only issue with Leonga Lafau is he needs to get stronger.
Yeah, he's also just a little slight physically too.
Yep. The only Polynesian in the world who's a hard gainer.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's rare. So yeah, that's the big thing with Leonga. Arogbo's NFL, in 3 years.
Yeah. And also Ty Anthony, he's a guy, be careful playing him as a coach.
I know, dude. That's the frustrating part, because he might ball out and then
just be careful with his reps, because he will do stuff that makes you come back in the meeting room on Sunday after the game where you go, we got a problem, fellas. We can't take Ty Anthony off the field.
Yeah, here's the problem with Ty Anthony Smith, right? Like, he's going to put tape in the offseason. Here's my prediction. Offseason, 7 schools are going to bid for him. And then you're going to have to say, look, Ty Anthony, we're going to give you a spot and we're going to one and done you next year.
Yeah.
Like, here's our record of doing that. This is the thing. But that's the tricky part when you have this level. We're getting into different conversations at Texas now, where our second strings are starter caliber. And so that's what I guess for Smith is that he's going to get attempted poach next year. And then the sell will have to be, look, man, we'll one and done you.
Well, and I'm going to miss Anthony Hill. Obviously, he's going to go and be a high draft pick. I'll miss Trey Moore. The future behind those guys is fantastic. I love Elijah Barnes. If you've watched his tape.
I think if you can go Brad Spence at Mike next year, Ty Anthony at Will.
Yeah.
I love that too. And so
that's a great combo. And so at Arkansas, I scouted Spence before we played Arkansas.
Yeah.
And my write-up was, hey, this guy is a great blitzer.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep an eye on him, because Arkansas loves to bring this guy. He's very explosive. He's almost like Anthony Hill, right, in that regard. What's really neat to hear is that he's just doing traditional linebacker stuff.
Right.
And that is really encouraging, because that's a guy you can play at Mike next year, start, and then letting Ty Anthony Smith freelance at will, which we give that position a lot of latitude to make plays. That's a guy you want at that position. Like, Ty Anthony is always up to something. He's always getting involved in something.
Yeah. He's a fun player to watch, man.
Yeah. He's the Dennis the Menace on the football field. Like, he's always up to something, and it's usually good for the defense. So
Leonga had some bad gap assignment mistakes last year. Ty Anthony will push him for playing time. Yeah. Leonga did have some issues with run fits last year.
Yeah. I think his issue is that he's not confident in his physicality. So sometimes he has to guess. because he's not comfortable firing downhill on a guard, stopping them in their tracks and making a tackle on like a traditional run play. So what he's doing is like running under blocks or trying to guess. And that, that will bite you. Sometimes you guess right. Sometimes you guess wrong. And yeah, I think it would really help him if he could be 230, 235.
The play I always think of was young Anthony Hill versus Wyoming whenever he was trying to guess that gap.
Yes.
And then they went for like 80 on him. and Anthony Hill didn't do that again.
No, he didn't. Anthony Hill, he learns. And
but that's what we want to see from Leonga, right? Like that step is going to be important. Playing sound, because I remember in Vanderbilt, me and Ian were breaking down them trying to handle the option, and he had an issue with that too. So, but which is weird, right? Because we hear such positive stuff coming out from sources about Leonga. We have since he stepped foot on campus.
He's their favorite coverage linebacker,
dude, hands down. And we've heard it for a couple years now. And so it's like that's the part that's interesting. Is like I'm not seeing the praise and field matchup entirely yet. Maybe it's this year where we see it.
I'll tell you what, a sign of program health, and this plays against our psychology and like as a fan, but you get familiar with players. A young guy taking an older guy's job is a good sign for your program. Usually, right. If you're a winning program, if you're a bad program, that's evidence of something else. But if Anthony Smith goes and takes Leonga Lafau's reps, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Well, you saw it with David Benda, who everybody loves, but that it happens. And the coaches will make the hard stuff. That's what I need to see from Leonga. I want him to flash, but more important at linebacker, whenever I go back and rewatch the tape, I just want to make sure he's fitting his gap and doing all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I truly believe he knows what to do. I think he doesn't have confidence in his physicality to like, sometimes as a linebacker, you got to run downhill. And you got to bring violence on a 320-pound guy and stop him in his tracks. And if you're not confident in your physicality, that's a hard thing to ask someone to do. So you cheat. You try to run under their block. You try to guess. Yeah, and that's where you get in trouble. You pick a side. You pick a hole, and eventually your coin flips come up on the wrong tails.
Yeah. All right, defensive back.
Interesting, man. I'm going to miss Jahdae Barron. That guy, and I mean Makuba, Barron, those guys were so good for us. Barron was just phenomenal. Not just subjectively locking down one side of the field, but objectively, if you look at his PFF stats of like attempted passes and how many yards they got out of it, it would, the end of every game, it would be like 2 pass attempts for 3 yards.
Dude, remember the one time he made a bad play because he thought the quarterback was going to throw the shallow and he was trying to go pick it.
Yeah.
And the quarterback actually threw it. I can't remember if it was Clemson or whatever. It might have been Kentucky. But anyways,
Kentucky.
It was Kentucky when he tried to freelance, which he had done so well, and he got beat. That's the only time all season where I was like, what happened with Barron? And then I realized what he was trying to do, which was be a smart player. So even his one mistake I saw this year was still him trying to make a play on a young quarterback.
Yeah, we're going to miss him tremendously. The thought is that Manny Muhammad's going to be the guy, the lockdown guy. He had a tough finish to the year. So I want to see more of the Manny Muhammad we saw in the first 7 or 8 games than the last 5 or 6. But we'll see. I like the group overall. I like the talent level. And I think kind of like some other positions, we have to be willing to be surprised in a pleasant way by the development of some of these guys. Like Roberson, he's a guy that I think is getting some attention and some positive attributes. And we know the athleticism is there. So don't be surprised if guys like that assert themselves. That's baked in the cake now under Steve Sarkisian. Texas fans should feel comfortable. Because it used to be you'd look at a depth chart and be like, well, that guy's not proven, so we don't know. He might never be a player.
Yeah.
I look at depth charts now as saying, who's it going to be? So that's an encouraging thing as an analyst.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so we got to see how Jalen does at corner.
Is he fast enough, Connor?
That sources say he is.
Okay.
And so it's like I'm just relying on the reporting there. And also, it's like, man, you don't have to think as much as that position too. Like
True.
nickel's a lot of mental processing. It's like a tight end level of thinking on the defensive side.
It's a maelstrom. I mean, as nickel, you're responsible for the slot, which is usually the number one go-to receiver in most college offenses. You're responsible for setting the edge in the run game, which is
you got a blitz. You got a blitz package.
You've got a blitz package. You've got, I mean, dude, you've got a lot going on, and it is the closest defensive back to the football, and there's a lot going on there. And unlike a defensive tackle, you're not, defensive tackles aren't sweating their pass coverage. So, that's a tough job. I coined the term super nickel, which seems to be that every defensive coordinator requires their nickel to be some sort of god among men in order to do every job that they're asked to do well. I think Gilbo will enjoy playing corner in that regard. So we'll see who is our nickel and replacement. That's going to be an interesting discussion.
Yeah, we'll see if it ends up having to be Jelani McDonald spinning down with Derek Williams returning at safety. I feel good at safety, man. Just these three, right? Derek Williams, Jelani McDonald, Taff.
Yep.
I feel great about that, man. The mix of athleticism, but also the mix of veteran ability. That's a cool room. The safety room is really cool. I don't think we're going to match last year's, but I think it's going to be good in a different way. I also feel like this defense is going to be good in a different way. Whereas last year, I felt it was like a very, very smart group, experienced group. This year feels like it's going to be an NFL, and this sounds silly because we just had 12 guys drafted, but this one's going to be really about like NFL measurables. Like when I think of like a Jelani McDonald and a Derek Williams and that kind of stuff, because Makuba went early, but it wasn't because of his measurables. And so it's like last year was smart guys. This one feels like Sark's been recruiting NFL athletes. Let's see that.
Also, I think these guys are going to learn that they're not going to have to be in coverage for 4 seconds.
Right.
I think that we're going to have a pass rush potentially that's going to be really good on predictable downs. Now, that said, Pete Kwiatkowski doesn't cut corners, right? We play honest defense on neutral downs. So a lot of college defenses will say, let's bring everybody on 2nd and 6. And if it's a run, maybe we'll get them in the backfield. If it's a throw, we're going to have pressure they're not expecting. But you also have the potential to give up big plays doing stuff like that, right? Pete has his edges, play it straight. 2nd and 6, you got to play the run. And then when you realize it's a pass, then you start your pass rush.
There's a scary confidence in that too. Like if I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm like, the PK really doesn't bring a lot of tricks. Every now and again, he'll throw you a look just to mess with you. But PK just has that's a lot of confidence in your athletes and your scheme to just be like, no, we're gonna beat you straight up.
Yeah, but on 3rd and 9,
yeah, good luck. Yeah,
Colin Simmons, Ethan Burke, all those guys, they've got a green light. Go get them.
Yeah,
and I think you're gonna see what that looks like, and if there's going to be sort of a minimum. So here's what the opponents I'll worry about to give you guys a little preview of my Thinking Texas Football preview that will come out this summer. Any minimum level of quality offensive line on the opponent, we're going to have a football game. If in your preseason preview it says many unknowns on their offensive line or concerns about their offensive line, blah, 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 just chalk that up as a W, because those teams will get inordinately slaughtered by our pass rush and just our quickness and all those blitzing, stunting linebackers. They're just not going to be able to hang, and whatever brilliant offensive scheme they have or whatever great skill players they have out wide will be made irrelevant because the quarterback's going to be on his back or throwing off his back foot on every play. And the teams you have to worry about are those that can field a minimum level offensive line, who can at least hold us off a little bit and then let some playmakers make plays on our secondary potentially. So, and I still think there is a potential. I don't know if this team exists in college football, maybe Notre Dame. If you look at our team objectively, there is an opportunity to run the ball on us. Maybe if you have the right personnel, but there's not a lot of double tight pound the ball teams in college football anymore.
Yeah, and we might not have the personnel for it, but man, and PK has been great with those teams too. I think about not even last year, but the team 2 years ago. Of course, you have Sweat and Murphy, right?
Yeah.
But I think schematically, PK will do something interesting there. But like you said, the weakness here is a good O-line that can pick up all the stunts, a really quick passing style of offense that doesn't care about dropping back, or potentially the 3 yards in a cloud of dust team that's just driving that way.
Garrett Blaylock asks a salient question. How does this DB room match up with OSU? Garrett, no DB room in college football matches up well with OSU. You've got to solve them with smart play. Mm-hmm. You've got to find a way to take Jeremiah Smith away, which we did beautifully. The only team in college football that really did it effectively, Michigan was the second most effective in that regard. But you got to get a pass rush on, and you've got to stop. You've got to terminate Ohio State's offense at the head, at the quarterback.
Yep.
You can't play, hey, we're scared of the receivers. Let's drop 7 into coverage and have a base pass rush. Like, you've got to stop Julian Sayin, and you've got to affect him, because it's not just Jeremiah Smith, who is the best player in college football.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Dude, I watched their spring game, Connor. Ohio State's second team wide receivers would start for 85% of college football. They're excellent. So, we're not getting a break because they lost Emeka Egbuka. Like, the guy replacing him was just as good.
Yeah, that's the problem with them. Because I remember everyone was talking about, is it Carnell Tate? Like he was a Jag. And I'm like, that's still a 5-star receiver.
No, he's going to be like the second-round draft pick.
That was the funniest part. They got Egbuka, they got Smith, and some guy named Carnell Tate. I'm like, all right, man, he's a 5-star, going to go early too. Like, that team is silly.
Yeah, and Tate actually hurt us a little bit, right?
Yeah.
In that game.
Has to be when you take away the Smith, like, he's the one that has to activate.
That's right. And here's the big problem, Garrett. If you double those guys, which you're going to have to, Max Clare is going to murder it inside.
Yeah,
so I watched Ohio State's spring game. He is Gunnar Helm. He moves like Gunnar Helm. He's the same size, and he is nifty. Like, he's an easy mover. When he releases off that line of scrimmage, he is 12 yards downfield before you can blink an eye in the middle of the field. And that middle of the field is going to be a lot of green when people play Ohio State, because they're going to be really concerned outside. That guy is going to kill it. And so you have got to chop off the snake's head. You've got to get Julian Sayin early and often, because you're not going to just play coverage and cover these guys. They've got too many weapons. It's the best receiving group, and I mean pass catcher group, not just receivers. It's the best pass catching group in college football by far. Number 2 is not close.
Yeah. Let's do it. How big is the drop-off for Ohio State on defense with the new DC and their departures?
I think it's substantial. Obviously, they bring back Downs, who's freaking amazing.
He's so fun to watch, dude.
But Jim Knowles leaving, that was, I think, an underappreciated aspect of their defensive success. They were not only very talented, Connor, they ran a really unique scheme.
Yeah, they were fun, because most coaches, when they have talent, they don't do the fun stuff. And
they just run their base stuff.
Knowles continues to innovate, even with, no matter who the talent level is.
Yeah, they had Downs playing de facto middle linebacker. They had their defensive ends lined up as 4 techs or 5 techs, like tight.
Yeah,
and you could not run the ball on that tight formation. And the middle of the field was packed with bodies. And their corners were basically ISO'd one-on-one, but they only had to defend the sideline, like that one area of the field. And it's a brilliant defense in conception. If you don't have the personnel to pull it off, it's a gimmick defense that you can destroy. But they had the personnel to pull it off. And Knowles committed to it. He believed in it. It would have been very tempting for him to be like, let's just run base. We got all this talent. We got these NFL guys. He's like, no. I'm going to run my little scheme, and it's going to really confound people. Interestingly, Texas had the best game plan in the playoffs of anyone against it, but we couldn't execute it because Golden got gimped up and went out for about 2.5 quarters of play. And that really hurt us outside. But if you saw what they did to Tennessee, if you saw what they did to Oregon, it was disgusting. I mean, the Tennessee game, they should have called it off. Like,
it was illegal.
I mean, it was hard to watch Tennessee try to run that offense against Ohio State's D. So they're going to have a big drop off schematically. They're going to have a big drop off athletically as well. I think they've got big issues on the D line. I hope we're able to exploit it. Ryan, you're exactly right. D line is the biggest place for OSU has to replace. I think their first teamers are good. I think they lack depth. So I think, mark my words, this will be famous last words of the fool. Texas will have an opportunity to throw the ball late against Ohio State with a big, clean pocket as they struggle to pass rush because they're worn down. They were not able to get guys in the portal on the D line. They did well in the portal elsewhere, but they didn't replenish their D line. And then their defensive backs, they'll replace. Ohio State.
Yeah.
Their DBs are kind of like the receivers. You can just count on them having guys there. Linebacker, they'll be similar. They've got big, strong linebackers. But the guy from Texas, Peyton Pierce, he was great in the spring game, and he's made a huge impression there. So don't be surprised if they start that guy for Ohio State as middle linebacker. But yeah, the real opportunity is going to be the drop off in scheme and the fact that they're going to be much more base. Also, don't underestimate Steve Sarkisian with several months to game plan.
Yeah, Sark tends to do that. Like if you give him the 6 months, it tends to be a very fun script. Really fun first 2 quarters. Okay, Paul, do you want to go through your portal winners just real quick?
Yeah, I think the big national portal winner of need versus number of guys taken was Oregon.
Okay.
And I love and they also got some little value adds that I love. The running back from Tulane, Mekhi Hughes, that guy's unbelievable. If you watched him play at all,
I didn't.
He's freaking awesome. He is exactly what they want and what they need. More importantly, they arguably got the 2 best offensive linemen in the portal. And
we were after this guy.
We're after Emmanuel Pregnon, who started at Wyoming. He started his career at Wyoming. Then he went to USC, started for them. He's one of the highest graded pass protectors in the interior offensive line in college football. And he's also a pretty good run blocker. That was a big get. He's a 6-year player. He's going to be huge for Oregon. And they're going to run Hughes right behind him on like 30% of their plays. And then they also added some random dudes. Like they added the best safety in the portal from Purdue. Who knew that 1-11 Purdue had so many coveted players, Connor?
Dude, but that's Purdue, man. Like for whatever reason, because wasn't Nick Scourton Purdue as well?
Yeah.
It's like and they just get rated. Like they have guys. It's weird.
Well, the guy for OU, Deion Burks. That's
Purdue. So it's like it's weird. Purdue has guys. They just get poached every year. They're like a farm team.
Yeah, and then they also added a really good young tight end from Louisville, who's like this 270-pound monster. He played some as a true freshman last year. He's going to be a big asset for them. So they did a nice job of filling needs. It wasn't as sexy because Oregon typically grabs like 25 guys. Yeah. They didn't grab as many this year, which actually might tell you something about Dan Lanning. He's doing a little bit better job of recruiting and developing and getting his guys in there.
Well, and also a little bit less of the performance of NIL. Like Oregon also wanted to make clear statements, splashes. It's recruiting. It's like maybe they're learning it's not all about the PR side of it too.
They did take Bear Alexander, which I want to ding them for.
Yeah,
but I guess they're just like, maybe we can get him to play hard. I don't know.
I mean, there's upside. If he doesn't do anything, who cares? If he does do something, there's NFL upside.
If you have enough money, you can just take guys on spec.
Yep.
Right?
All right, teams of interest. Oklahoma did and are you including, is this just spring portal that you're looking at or in totality?
Totality.
Okay, good. Yeah. All right. So OU takes the Cal back and then Mateer, who I'm really excited to watch this year. I like Mateer a lot.
He's a one-man gang. He is what they need on their offense. Because
if he can go Sam Ehlinger mode, he can win you a game.
He can win you games a la Sam Ehlinger, because he doesn't have, like Sam Ehlinger, doesn't have the supporting cast.
Yeah.
And OU, they're trying to address that with Jim Nagy. He's going after these guys who are lower division, but he sees being able to step up. And what they're able to do is get them on the cheap.
Yeah.
And if he's successful, this is OU's game plan for being relevant in college football.
Yeah.
If he's not successful, the Oklahoma Sooners, believe it or not, are going to become a second-tier SEC team.
Is there anyone who is using that model to success? Is there, or historically? Because my thing with
Kansas
OU,
State, but it's a model of success in the Big 12, right?
yeah.
So that's the limitation. When Kansas State plays Alabama in the bowl, they get blown out, right?
Yeah, that's my thing. Is just like, and me and Paul have talked about this. That taking guys from a lower rank doesn't mean anything bad, but when it feels like you're taking like 3/4 from those ranks, that's where I start to question what's going on there. But we'll have to see, man.
Well, part of the issue here is OU doesn't have as much money as some of the teams that are headliners of college football. Secondly, Mateer cost them some money.
Well, here's the thing. They're also getting leverage to where they're having to buy these big name players, and it's hurting their downstream.
Well, they're not doing that anymore. That's why they brought in Nagy.
Cool.
So Venables got burned last year because they all got into like little bidding wars, like Demonic Williams.
Yeah.
Where we got to win over Texas. And we almost paid this guy $1 million to be college average.
Yeah.
Oh, great win.
And Texas approximated that with 3 different defensive tackles.
We took Jermaine Lole, who played equally to Demonic Williams, and we paid him 1/4.
Yeah.
That's good salary cap. That's good management. That's good NIL. OU blew it last year. And so that's why Nagy's been brought in, because they're saying, how can we get a good scouting eye who can get us great players on the cheap comparatively? And that's the proposition. If it works, OU, congratulations. You're still OU. If it doesn't work, they're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. But overall, good class. Teams of interest in the portal. All right. Ohio State, we covered a lot.
Yeah,
here.
we covered that. They didn't take many people. They didn't do like last year where they just murdered it. I mean, so Ohio State last year, part of the reason they were so successful was just not their frontline talent, which was great. They had incredible depth.
Yeah.
So they had multiple guys missing games on their line. They had, Travion Henderson feels a little gimpy in warmups. Oh, Quinshawn Judkins, second round back or whatever he was. Are you ready to take 20 carries today? Sure. So that was their strength. They did take some really good guys. That North Carolina edge, keep your eye on that guy. He's a good player, and he's a guy that kind of flew under the radar.
Texas A&M, I thought they did great at receiver, and you talk about that. So I love Mississippi State. Whenever we were playing Mario Craver, to me, I was like, this is a classic Sark audition. This is like golden. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. But I'm like, dude, you don't want to do that as a lower level team. You do not want your wide receiver to do well versus Sark, because we have this history of just being like, and thank you. And so I honestly thought Sark was, because Craver's a fast player.
Yep.
I thought Sark was going to poach Craver. A&M got there first, and then NC State's Concepcion's also a really good receiver.
He's a yak guy, which is great for Marcel Reed, because you could just throw it out to him in the flat or in a screen, and he'll go make you yards with his legs. And then Craver opens up the field downfield.
Correct.
Those are the 2 throws that Marcel Reed can throw.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a dual threat. Marcel Reed has good wheels. So people saw us destroy A&M's offense last year. That's cool. We have the potential to do it again. Just understand that now they've got some weapons that actually play to Marcel Reed's strengths.
Yeah. And it's going to be a year too, man. That matters too for cohesiveness. So this is what's interesting. The Iowa State edge is a big physical edge who can play inside, but he can't really pass rush. Okay, A&M did nothing with that last year. So it's like, great. You had early rounders, but I've never seen an NFL defensive line get drafted like that were just non-factors.
Yeah, it's so weird, Connor, because they had these outsized reputations. And then when I was prepping and scouting A&M for our game, because I was like, oh, these guys are going to be a load. I watched them play, and I was like, not really.
Yeah, because I was worried. I was like, Quinn Ewers struggles in the pocket. This could be a real problem, and it just wasn't a real problem.
And we ran and we pushed them around.
Yeah,
we ran the ball right up their ass that whole game. So, I don't think they fixed their lines of scrimmage, and I think they've got some upside. I mean, A&M has upside every year, right? But they go 8-4. But until they get their lines of scrimmage really good, I just don't see them being a big threat. I think week to week there'll be a problem.
Correct. They can always reach up and win a game.
Yeah.
All right.
Arkansas, I feel really bad for.
Dude, they got slaughtered, dude.
We participated in that slaughter. We took spent from them. Ole Miss took 3 starters. Kentucky took an O-line starter. Their entire offensive line, which was a big physical group, right? Texas fans will remember them. The whole offensive line got taken. They're gone.
They got their wide receiver. They got their slots. They got their slots taken too. Their slot receivers got poked.
Yeah, I mean Satania they can replace. That he's a
Tesla. They took Tesla, Satania, like a lot of them.
They just lost like every player that when I scouted Arkansas last year, it's like, oh, that guy's pretty good.
Yeah,
they're gone. They're all gone.
Yeah,
and they don't have the ability to just replace those guys. It's not a factory.
Correct.
So they paid to return Talon Green, their quarterback, but there's nothing around them. Now, they did go and raid the Big 12 and the G5, and they got some guys. So they'll be okay. They're not going, 2-10. But man, it has to be really frustrating to be an Arkansas fan.
I say good thing Green can run because he's going to need to run.
Yeah, he's going to need to run. But
yeah,
if you're an Arkansas, if you're a Kentucky, this new world of
sucks.
It sucks, man, because you're getting good players on your roster. You're developing them. These big, strong 3-star offensive linemen that Arkansas was developing, and then another team that's superior just comes in and takes them.
But the problem is you're getting farmed too by like your rivals or teams that were once your equals. Like that's the frustrating part. You know?
Ole Miss 20 years ago, would you rather be the head coach at Arkansas or Ole Miss? You'd be like, Arkansas.
Yeah, Arkansas, hands down.
Now when I ask you that question, you're like, Ole Miss, hands down.
Yeah.
That's tough when the teams you used to look down on are now treating you as a farm league.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tough, man.
All right. Thanks for going a little long with us today.
We went long because I bugged out on you. Sorry about that, y'all.
No, it's all good, man. I didn't think you did. I thought it was maybe the weather gods. And then I'll have to brace for impact here. The rain stopped and then it came back, but
go put on your thunder coat. You've had a very disconcerting live. I'm concerned about you, Connor.
You should be, man. Just text me every hour. Make sure I'm still around.
Okay.
All right, chat. Thank you guys so much. It was fun. I enjoyed hanging out with y'all. And then I will brave the storm on my own.
Academy Surplus and Gabe Winslow. Y'all support him.
Absolutely. This was brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Later, y'all.